Welcome to Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello and welcome to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate and understand how valuable everyone's time is, and that is why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Now, if you have a loved one with dementia, then this episode may be far too familiar to you. We're going to be discussing how to prevent your loved one from getting lost. This is a very real fear for many families who have loved ones with dementia. And it could be that your loved one wanders, and when you're not looking, maybe they go out the front door and start wandering down the street. Or maybe they wander more at night, and it's hard to rest knowing that they may leave the house at some point during the night. In fact, it's a very common problem for families with loved ones with dementia. In fact, 3 out of 5 people with dementia wander. That's an estimated 3 million people per year. And luckily, most of those who wander don't get very far, and their situation is never reported to the police or to the authorities. But not every situation is that fortunate. When a loved one's wandering does become more severe and families do need to contact authorities for assistance, the statistics are very dire. Now, if a loved one wanders and they are found within 12 hours, 93% will survive, but unfortunately 7% will not. The longer that they are missing or lost, the greater the chances are that they won't survive. We have friends who live next door to a senior living complex, and this senior living complex is not a memory care facility or a lot campus. And they were sharing with us that on a fairly regular basis, they will have visitors from next door. This last visitor had shown up on their patio at 2:30 in the morning, and it's fair to say that they were a little frightened when their dog woke them up and kept barking until they came downstairs to see what all the commotion was about. And when they went to their patio where this man was trying to get inside their home, it frightened them. And though it wasn't malicious or anything, he simply thought that this was his home. So our friends called over to the facility, and the alarming part is that they didn't even realize that he was out of his room or had left the building. This is a good yet scary example of how quickly someone with dementia can wander off and, in this example, not even be missed until hopefully a good Samaritan contacts the responsible party to let them know. If your loved one has dementia and you're considering moving them into a senior living facility or environment, make sure that you talk with them about what concerns you may have or how they prevent wandering and leaving the building unsupervised. The facilities that are like the one from the example will not be a locked facility since it's an independent living community. And the unfortunate part is that independent living is not able to properly accommodate individuals who are dealing with dementia the way that they should be and need to be. Even assisted living facilities are limited in being able to accommodate the needs of someone with dementia, though some assisted living communities also have specialized memory care units that can adequately accommodate the needs of individuals with dementia. Now, another example that we like to share is one that could have ended up a lot worse than it had. Sometimes we meet with families who have just started to discover that their loved one has dementia. This is actually fairly common since families are often scattered all over, and most are still working and raising their family, and they may not have the ability to visit as often as they would like to. And so they may only see their loved ones once or twice a year, and more if they're able to. And during these visits, the dementia can be hard to detect if you're not looking for it, and sometimes you think the innocent forgetfulness is just that mom or dad is getting a little older and a little more forgetful. Or they'll make excuses so that they don't worry their children. Or they're concerned if they share some of the issues that they've been having, they may not be able to stay living in their homes. So in some cases, the children don't become aware or alarmed until something serious happens. Once something happens, though, most of the time the children, when they're talking about it, they become upset with themselves, saying things like, I should have known, or They recall situations or incidents that, knowing now their loved one has dementia, makes more sense in hindsight. If any of those scenarios sound familiar to you, don't beat yourself up. In this last example we wanted to share, happened almost just like this to a family we were helping several years ago. The daughter contacted our offices because she had just flown into town and picked her mother up from the hospital, and the daughter was scared and worried and emotionally drained. It was just a day earlier that she had received a phone call from a doctor at a local hospital informing her that her mother was brought into the emergency room for extreme dehydration and wanted to know approximately how long her mother had had dementia. The daughter was speechless. She didn't know that her mother had dementia, and the doctor then informed her that her mother had been brought in by the police because she had been driving around for what they believed was over 12 hours in her car in the middle of a very hot summer day with the windows up and the air conditioner off. Now, the only reason that she was rescued was because, as we had said, she'd been driving around for at least 12 hours that they knew of and was able to recognize when she needed gas, and she kept going back to the same gas station every time to get gas. So finally, the gas station became concerned and contacted the local police. Thankfully, the employees at the gas station became suspicious enough to get involved, and it probably saved this woman's life. When meeting with the daughter, she felt extreme guilt for not knowing her mother had dementia and blamed herself. We asked her some questions and explained to her that it can be difficult to identify sometimes. And just by talking over the phone, and usually the phone calls can be fairly superficial and it can be masked fairly easily unless you start looking under the surface. And the daughter said that's exactly what happened in her situation. Her mother never really gave her any reason for concern. It was a typical small talk like, how's the weather been? And what did you do today? How's work going? And small things like that. So they never really got into any details or specifics that could raise any suspicion in the daughter's mind. But remember, every situation is unique, whether you're not living close by and visits are done mostly by phone, or maybe your loved one lives alone or lives in a senior community, or they moved in and are living with you. There are tips and ways to help minimize and prevent the risk of your loved one getting lost. These suggestions are hopefully going to help you and your loved one. First thing you want to do is make sure your loved one always has identification with them, whether it's a medical ID bracelet, a state ID, or even an old driver's license. Make sure you have the correct address and contact information on it. Try to keep their routine as consistent as possible. Oftentimes, loved ones with dementia will follow and stick with their routine as much as they're able to. And if you live by woods, water, or any unsafe terrain, place barriers to help prevent them from wandering towards them, and even placing a sign with bright lettering that says stop or do not enter. That can assist in preventing them from going towards those areas. And talk with your neighbors. It may be embarrassing at first, or maybe it's uncomfortable, but let them know that if they see your loved one wandering outside by themselves, to notify you immediately. And if they're able, have them stay with them until you or help arrives. And have their clothing and coats tagged with their name and contact information on it. Now, this one may seem like a grim tip or suggestion, but sometimes when they wander, they do get lost, and it may take time to find them, and you may have to involve authorities and police. Police can use canine dogs to help locate their scent. So you want to keep one article of their clothing separate from all the others and set it aside without washing it in case they do get lost, and the unwashed clothing can be used in helping in the search. And if you don't have one already, take and keep a recent photo of them that can be used if they wander and become lost, and assist in locating them. Now, things you can do inside the home that are relatively inexpensive and affordable and convenient are door alarms and window alarms. You can have door alarms and window alarms placed on all doors and windows that lead to the outside of the home. When we make this recommendation to families, they sometimes are concerned that it sounds like a very big expense, and sometimes they'll ask if you need an electrician or a contractor, or if there's a monthly fee involved, There isn't. It's fairly simple, quick, and inexpensive. Now, we don't recommend or suggest any one brand, but if you go to Amazon, there are many options available, and many of them are plug and play. This means there's no major installation involved, and they do not require that monthly fee or subscription. One example that we found for this episode is made by GE. GE makes these door and window alarms, and a 2-pack costs around $10.87, and a 12-pack costs around $46.99. There's no wiring involved, and they operate on 4 LR44 batteries that are included. And by having these on your doors and windows, it can help provide the family a little more security and peace of mind that if they're in another room, or maybe they had to go downstairs to the laundry room, or whatever the situation is, if their loved one tries to go outside, as soon as the door or window opens, they will send out a loud alarm so that you can immediately be notified. Another option that we recommend to families is having security cameras in the home and even outside. This used to be a very expensive and involved process in the not too distant past for families. But like the door alarms and the window alarms, they've become very reasonable for families to have for their home. If you have a Costco or a Sam's Club membership, they often have cameras available, and they'll typically have packages of cameras of 4 all the way up to 12 or 16 that you can purchase. And then Amazon is the other place you'll want to check. The example we found is a brand called TwoGuard. That's spelled TOGUARD. The TwoGuard package costs $199.99 with a Prime membership. It's an 8-channel security system that is plug and play, and it has night vision and remote access motion email alerts. The system will connect right out of the box, and then you will create an account using the email address that you want to receive notifications to for when the cameras detect motion. And you can also watch in real time as well. They are weatherproof for the cameras you would want to place outside of the home. Now, having these cameras help give families peace of mind and to be able to check in anytime they want on their loved ones. An example of why cameras are very helpful, supportive, and useful for families is an example we had from a family we were helping who lived 20 to 25 miles from their mother, and the mother had dementia and lived alone. The daughter would call her mother several times a day to check in on her, and whenever her mother didn't answer the phone, the daughter would give her a few minutes in case she was in the bathroom or downstairs, until one day she kept calling and her mother still wasn't answering. Now, her mother lived out in the country, so there were no neighbors she could contact to check in or to go over there to see if everything was okay. So the daughter decided to make the drive. And again, it's 20 to 25 miles away. And the whole car drive, she was panicking and calling and not knowing what to expect when she got to her mother's house. Now, when the daughter did finally arrive, her mother was sitting on the front porch, and it was after 10 o'clock at night, and this was in the middle of winter. Her mother had gotten locked out and had no way to let anyone know. She couldn't drive anywhere because her keys had been taken away. She didn't have a cell phone, and her house phone was inside. And thankfully, this daughter was diligent on calling and checking in on her mother. This could have been a lot worse had the daughter not decided to drive there and instead just go to sleep and think that maybe her mom was already asleep as well. And when talking with the daughter, we had asked her why she didn't get cameras for the home. She said she thought that the cameras and the installation would be more money and more involved that they could afford. And when we explained that it was pretty simple to set up and explained to her that they were very affordable, she ordered the cameras the next day. And within a week, they were set up, and she has relied on those cameras more times than I can tell you. It was a wonderful, wonderful resource for this daughter. And it gave her peace of mind. So the next time when her mom doesn't answer the phone, she's not immediately panicked or jumping in the car to head out there. She goes on the cameras and checks to see if she can see her mom. And then she sees that her mom is safe, and maybe she was in the restroom or downstairs or even sitting on her porch. So cameras are a great resource for families, especially if they don't live close by. One other tool that families can utilize for their loved one is a bed sensor. Now, this is really good if your loved one lives at the home with you. This works similar to the door and window alarms. It's attached to the bed so that if your loved one goes to get out of bed, it will trigger an alarm so that you're notified they're getting up. This is a nice tool for when you're in bed, and oftentimes families say that it's difficult to rest comfortably because they're worried if they fall asleep, they may not know if their loved one gets up and leaves their room. The brand we're going to use as an example can be found on Amazon, and the name of the brand is the Smart Caregiver Corporation, and it's a cordless bed exit monitoring system alarm with a bed pressure sensing pad. It's portable and can be placed up to 300 feet away from the pad, and the cost is $119.95 with Prime. And the system uses 3C batteries, and the cordless bed sensor pad is placed across the width of the bed under the fitted sheet and is ready to use right out of the box. There are continuously more and more options and resources available to help keep families and their loved ones safe more than ever, and they thankfully are becoming more and more affordable. We'd like to hear from you if you have equipment or things that you have found helpful for helping to prevent your loved one from wandering and getting lost and giving you a little more peace of mind. We'd love to hear about it. You can reach out to the show by visiting our website at allhomecarematters.com. There's a contact form there that you can fill out and share your tips with us, and we will share them in an upcoming episode. We want to thank you for joining us here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here for you and to help families as they navigate long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there is a private, secure, fillable form there where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode or has a loved one with dementia and they're dealing with wandering issues, please share it with them. We hope you'll join us next time on All Home Care Matters, where we're going to discuss the top 5 things to do so that you or your loved one can age in place. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.